All right, so the FBI, or the affidavit that's led to the FBI raid in Mar-a-Lago has been sort of released.
Yeah, as you can see here on the screen, lots to say right there.
Yeah, there's some big words like "the" that are unredacted. It's unbelievable, and they get away. They think this made their case better. This has made it worse off.
Well, for more on this, we're going to be joined by constitutional law attorney and former legal counsel to President Trump, Jenna Ellis. Jenna, I know you're going to have your comments, especially after what Carl just said, but Trump requested a special master to review those documents that were taken by the FBI. Before we really get into it, can you explain what his reason is for doing this?
Yeah, well, this is all about putting the documents into the hands of a third party that's neutral rather than the government supervising itself. This is an entirely appropriate request. President Trump was right to ask for that. And so this is a tentative ruling from the judge in this case, and he's indicated that he will appoint a special master. And importantly, then the FBI would also have to show whether or not they had a taint team in place that has separated the documents from law enforcement, so that if there are any privileged documents, that those aren't in the hands of anyone who might be prosecuting this case further if the FBI decides to go that route in the DOJ.
Well, Jenna, I don't mean to blow up our off-air conversation, but you and I just talked about. We had Maggie on, and she made some points that I happen to disagree with. And one of the things, and we're going to let her respond in the next hour, but she looks at this through the prism, and some Americans do too, that the government wanted those documents back. Why didn't Trump give it to him? And I look at this through the prism of those documents, if he's saying they're his, maybe they're his and the government's wrong.
Yeah, well, I had to text you because I saw Maggie and I just said, okay, this lady has absolutely no idea what she's talking about. She's a little confused about everything. Well, the American people aren't confused here. We're all seeing that the FBI and the Democrats and everyone on the left has been targeting President Trump for the last 6 years. This is just the next thing. I mean, come on. The President Trump set up himself to get raided by the FBI just as an appeal to his base. That's absurd. And so when you're looking at the totality of what has gone on for the last 6 years, no reasonable person would not step back and say, this is yet another next thing in the line of what the Democrats are targeting President Trump with. And look, we're not hearing anything about January 6th anymore. The timing of this is so suspicious because right after Liz Cheney loses her primary and everything about the January 6th committee is going away, now this raid happens, and this is the next mantra. This is the next thing that Eric Swalwell is tweeting saying the walls are closing in.
Sure.
Jenna, two things here. In the beginning, you said that the special counsel will be neutral. I think that's really important to note because a neutral party here could help bring back trust and maybe unconfuse.
But who's neutral now?
Who is neutral here? But you also mentioned that why would somebody want to be targeted? That's a really good question. Nobody's going to say, yeah, let me invite an investigation and go through all of this headache and this hassle here.
Right.
But going off of what Maggie said, what Carl just reiterated, is there's this idea of, well, why didn't Trump give back those boxes and give back that information? Can you explain maybe what was going on with the inner workings to why Trump had them and why he didn't just go, here you go, take it back?
Well, he's been in discussion, he and his lawyers, with the National Archives apparently for the last several months. And, a president is entitled to keep some of his own documentation. And so what the National Archives thinks that they need to have secured in a different location. I mean, this comes down to a property dispute rather than anything criminal. And that's why going off on this redacted affidavit, what we have seen, which, most of the section on probable cause is redacted out. But what we can see, there's no basis here that the totality of the circumstances, a reasonable person based on the information that was apparently known to the affiant at the time would have provided a reasonable or legal basis to say that a crime had been committed here. Well, I mean, this is just all about documents that President Trump has indicated were 100% declassified.
Yeah, well, and that's the big question here is like he's openly come out and said that, and because he said that, because he had them, the president really, it's almost impossible for him to violate any type of classification procedures because he is the classification. But I want to get into privilege, and I got about a minute left for you to break down all this stuff. Executive privilege, attorney-client privilege. Now, if I talk to my lawyer and I say, I like to wear women's shoes in the bathroom or whatever, that is protected. However, if someone seizes those documents, gives them to, I don't know, CNN, and they run with it, the damage is done What do you do at that point?
Yeah, and this is what's so frustrating about these continued leaks, because not only has executive privilege been undermined through the leaks, even through what has been compelled, for example, by the January 6th committee, and people turning this over to Congress, who then, it appears, has leaked to the media, then ultimately those privileges have been undermined. But this is all about the fact that the sacrosanct nature of attorney-client privilege, as well as a president while in office, to be able to talk to his senior advisors without worrying that his predecessor will come in and undermine all of his confidential communications. Those are normal standards here. But Donald Trump is always the person who is never treated the same as every other president and every other citizen, by the way, in the United States. So no one is above the law, but Donald Trump is not below the law either. And there is just no crime here that I have seen in anything of this affidavit that would justify this type of unprecedented right.
That may be the quote of the day. He's not above the law, but he's not below it either.